Hi guys, welcome again to all the RTSSG fans. Chris Henderson here from the Wheelchair Footy side. So thanks for tuning in. Today, a couple of things. We're going to talk about the game on Sunday against the Saints, but also I'm really thrilled to have our special guest today, Miranda Charlton, one of our fellow deputy vice captains. So hey Miranda, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, Hendo?
I'm pretty good, thank you. Thanks for joining us today. Really thrilled you could have a few minutes spare to come along and have a chat. I guess, too, it's a great opportunity because of the fact Miranda probably would have been voted best on ground on Sunday. So we went down to the Saints. They're a really strong outfit, but Miranda starred, and we'll talk about her role in the team a bit later on. But, yeah, Miranda, it was a tough day at the office on Sunday.
Yeah, I think we knew coming up against St Kilda, they're definitely one of the top of the table teams. They've got some really superb players that are just hard to shut down, and I think it was definitely a case of that on the weekend. Regardless of the result, I think we were down by 30 points in the end. Huge improvement for Richmond Tigers compared to round one, where we got trounced by Collingwood. So really good to see on the court.
Yeah, and I think, again, knowing playing full forward, I kind of keep it on the scoreboard, and I know that I think in that second quarter they scored 5 or 6 goals to our 1, and they got away from us at half-time. The third quarter, though, we were able to come back. We scored 3 and kept them to 1. So I think we went in at three-quarter time, 18 points down. We scored the first goal in that start of the last, and so we got back to 12. And I'm pretty sure they would have been pretty confident they were going to take care of us pretty easily. And I reckon we probably gave them a bit of a fright in that first 3 and a bit quarters. Couldn't quite go on with it. And again, they got a couple of junk time goals at the end to win by 5. Their captain, Ryan Smith, who we both know pretty well, had a day out, to say the least. And to give the listeners a bit of an insight, the team scored 13 goals and he scored 11. So the way their midfield and stuff work to get the ball to him, he's a very, 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 very good wheelchair footballer. And we couldn't stop him on the weekend, could we?
No, Ryan is a very tall athlete on the ground. He has an immense presence. He's got an amazing reach. So when you're sitting a little bit shorter in the chair, there's not much that you can really do to get your hand in front of his to stop him marking the ball. It's also quite an effort to keep him out of his scoring range, because this guy can pretty much score a goal from over half court. So it's a lot of hard work for our defenders. And I guess part of our game plan is that I assist with the defensive role against Ryan. Yeah. But, him getting 11 out of 13 goals, he was pretty unstoppable on the weekend, unfortunately.
Yeah, he was. So the other thing about Sunday was it's the first match that's been played away from Miranda. So we got to play at RSEA Park, St Kilda's home ground, which was a really exciting thing for the league, development for the league, I guess. It was fun down there, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Something that's a little bit different. A real shame, I guess, that we weren't allowed to have any spectators in line with the COVID restrictions, because it would have potentially just allowed some other people who live in a different area to be closer to that game, to see it in the flesh, so to speak. But it was a great stadium. It was really good for St Kilda to organise that for the league, and hopefully that might be a feature that we see in the years to come. I know that they had planned another game at Bendigo, but that couldn't go ahead. So maybe
I think our next game, which is slated for July 18, is at at MSAC, our next game currently. So there is a possibility I'm hearing some whispers that we may be playing in 2 weeks' time, so Sunday week. In one of the catch-up games. So we missed a Hawthorn game and whatever. So we'll let everyone know if we are playing, but it's thrilled with acting Premier Molino's announcement yesterday that crowds are back. So by the time we play again in a week or 2 or a couple of weeks, we should have a ability to have some people come along and watch, we love playing in front of crowds.
I think any athlete likes playing in front of crowds. It just gives a completely different atmosphere, and the Richmond cheer squad's got down to a few of our games, and I think the difference that they make is immense for our team. So, yeah.
Bloody absolutely. Yeah, couldn't agree more. I actually just swore then, so sorry, Pete, for swearing. So now, Miranda, we are here for a very important segment called Quick Hands with Hendo. So I'm going to throw, I think it's about 10 questions. Possibly it's only 9, I'm not sure. So we'll get through them. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, throw them at me.
Righto. So firstly, what team did you barrack for as a kid?
Hawthorn. I've been the brown
you're a Hawk fan?
life.
Yeah, right. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's I think all my family, predominantly, other than Mum, that was a Blues supporter. Everyone in my family went for Hawthorn, so it was a bit of a no-brainer.
Yeah, right.
I was born in 1990, so I missed all our glory in the 80s. But I was lucky enough to go to our grand final win in 2008, which was an amazing time.
Yeah, you've still got to see a premiership in your lifetime. That's still pretty good.
Oh yeah, I've seen it now, but haven't been to all of them.
Yeah, right. So now I should explain to all our listeners as well. What position do you play for our side, Miranda?
So I play what's called a centre. It's basically the ruck position on the court. So I'm responsible for doing all the tip outs. Sorry, Raffy's just come to say hello. This is my dog.
Oh, your puppy.
Yeah. Little antisocial, but never mind. So I'm the ruck of the team, basically. What that means is that I'm responsible for the tip outs and that I have full reign of the court. So I have a role within offence but can't score any goals. I'm also a huge role on the defensive end of the court as well.
Yeah, so for those listening, so Miranda will double team one of their key forwards, if you like, to help our defenders out. So quite often the defenders would give goal side and Miranda would probably help sort of cut the path, if you like, for them. Likewise for us in the attacking area, or lay some picks, would pick, so she would block their defenders so that I would get out, or one of our other forwards would get out, so that we can actually make a play for a mark. So Miranda is integral to the success of our team, and she's a really important part of what we're about. So that's very good. So Miranda, now we've started this question, which is a tricky one, but I'm curious to see what you throw at me as an answer here. Who would you most describe yourself like in the AFL world? AFL women or men's, doesn't matter, but just to give it some perspective, I guess, who would you be most like, do you think?
I think that's a really challenging question.
Yes, I agree.
Someone who's maybe an undersized ruck who has a really integral role in defence. So off the top of my head, I'm going to go with Geelong's Mark Blitzers, because I think he plays that second ruck position. He's obviously primarily a defender. But yeah, I think maybe that's a good matchup for me. If anyone else has any other ideas of someone who's undersized but manages to get the job done in the ruck, that's probably a fair description for myself.
No, Miranda, I've been thinking about this myself this morning and going, I don't know. And then when you threw that out, I was like, that's a perfect reference, a perfect similarity. You are all of those things: key, back, mid. Can roll all day like we do, and like he does, runs all day. So no, I really like that reference. I think that's nailed you perfectly. So well done. So just a couple of other questions. Just, you mentioned Hawks before. Who did you idolise growing up? Was it sporting, or was it? It doesn't have to be sporting. It just, who did you look up to as a kid growing up?
Yeah, right. I'm gonna stay in the sports arena because that's just where my head is at the moment. I probably wasn't on the footy field, to be honest. Being female, I wasn't really encouraged to play footy. The AFLW is a very new league here.
Yeah, of course.
I grew up playing a lot of basketball, so I'd say Lauren Jackson, Australia's arguably best basketballer of all time.
No.
She was someone who motivated me to do my best, and you just sort of wanted to be like her. I was actually really, really lucky with the basketball team that I play at the moment. We often play in the Albury basketball tournament in November, I think it is.
Where she's living now.
where she's living, where she grew up, where you play in the Lauren Jackson basketball stadium, and she's actually played in 2 of those tournaments. So I've had the pleasure of playing against Lauren Jackson on a number of occasions, and wow.
Wow, I didn't know that. Yeah, wow, that's amazing. Now that's a great idolised hero. I love that. So now, Miranda, again, I know, but just for everyone else, what do you do for a job?
I'm an occupational therapist, so I work in community health, primarily with people who have a disability or are aged, and we want to try and keep people at home as safe and independent as possible. So I guess that's where I've become involved with wheelchair sports, because I can see that sport has been such an important part of my life, and I'm really keen to make sure that as many people with a disability, without a disability, have the opportunity to play sports.
And I think that's probably an appropriate maybe segue now into the next question, which is, generally speaking, now the next question I would ask is, do you have a disability, and do you want to talk about your disability? And again, that's entirely up to the individuals. But in your situation, you're one of our unique couple of people we have in the team that we class as, and it's not a great term, but an able-bodied. So which means, and again, we have talked about in other sessions around the classification structure. So you're what we would call a 5-pointer, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. So I don't even know if you know this, Hendo, but I was born with a hearing disability. So I actually...
Yeah, I do know that. But
so I wear hearing aids. Honestly, I think 9 out of 10 people wouldn't realise that I have a hearing impairment. I've adjusted really well with the technology that I use every day. Might have dropped down to 7 out of 10 people wouldn't have noticed when we were all masked up, because you do rely on facial expressions and body language a lot. So I probably was a little bit more obvious through some of the months last year. But yes, my hearing impairment has no effect on my ability to play sport. So I'm classified as a 5-pointer, which is what all that able-bodied players are. And I guess the purpose of that is because it's a sport that's designed for people with a disability to play, they want to try and limit the number of able-bodied players on the court. So with the team only having a 16-point cap, a 5-pointer on the team is almost taking up a third of those points.
That's right.
It really means if I'm on the court, then it creates an opportunity for our 1s, 2s, 0-point players to be on the court as well, so that we can keep that number down.
Yeah, and so the other thing to mention as well is that generally speaking, you're only allowed 1 5-pointer on the court at any time. So our team has 2 players, yourself and Lux, and so you both are alternating sort of thing effectively on the court. If you're on, he can't be, and if he's on, you're off. So, and again, that, as you say, that encourages, and again, it isn't all in. The sport is designed as all inclusion. It's for everybody. And I think that I think they try to accommodate that the best they can. And I think it works pretty well. Do you agree?
Yeah. And I think with elite sports, you've got the opportunity to keep it, just for people who have a disability. But when you try and expand that into more social comps, where you need to get as many players as involved, that's where you almost need to have that provision for able-bodied players to play, because it means that people with a disability, that their siblings, their friends can also join in with that sport. So it's not creating a really exclusive group of people that can access the sport.
And the fact that you and I have over the years, for me, but like we've both had the pleasure of playing sport, for a lot of people who have been born with a disability, whatever it may look like, or have acquired one through injury or whatever it may be. So we've had the pleasure of having access to sport over our lives growing up as young adults and kids or whatever, whereas for a lot of people, they've never got to play Auskick and they've never got to do these sorts of things. So it's amazing when you see people now be exposed to sports that they otherwise wouldn't be, and it is. And I know that you have a passion for that classification space, being an OT. That's something that you're really keen to get more involved in, isn't it, moving forward?
Yeah, definitely, because I think particularly when you're looking at sports and disability sports, you know, there is that trend that people want it to become a very elitist sport, that it's the best of the best, that spectators only want to see the best of the best playing, much like the Paralympics. But if that's the way that a league goes or a game goes without implementing things like a classification, then it means the players with the highest level of injury, with the highest level of disability, who have the least opportunity to engage in sport, are routinely left on the bench or not given a spot on a team, because they're not seen to have all the skills that your more talented players might, because they've got a lower level of injury or just more ability in general.
And we've seen that already with this year, with the new classifications coming in, that we've seen 1-pointers get a lot more court time. And even as you, Kate, there are some 0-pointers. And so, again, and I'll explain that more as the season unfolds, and Miranda, you're probably better than me, that under 18s and women with disabilities are classed as a minus, like they have, whatever their classification is, they have then a -1 deduction, don't they? So,
yeah. So again, it's about trying to include people who may, for whatever reason, feel less comfortable playing the sport. So I think for minors, there's that understanding that, you know, footy can be a bit of a rough and tumble sport, and playing against adults is a very intimidating experience. So we're lucky to have Ange on our team, and he's phenomenal, under 18, so he drops down in classification, which is so valuable for our team. We've also,
so he's a 3 down to 2, isn't he?
Yep, 3 down to a 2. And we've got Freya as well. So because she's female, she drops from a 1 to a 0, which is basically, you know, it means that we can play 2 of our highest point players on the court, and as well as having Freya on the court at a 0. So it's a
which works really well.
space to be in. Interestingly enough, I think I'm the only female able-bodied player in the league, and there's no deductions for me. So there's been that decision that if you're female, you're under 18, but you're able that you're still a 5, which on the whole of it, I think is fair, because I think it's fair that the able-bodied are kind of disadvantaged in that way, that you can't play them the whole game. The idea is to get them on and off the court where possible.
Yeah, true. Righto. So that's a great few answers there. So I love that. My next question for you, Miranda, is what's your favourite other sport other than footy? And I know some of these answers, but the listeners and viewers won't. So that's why I'm asking. So you're probably thinking, I know these answers, and I do, but I'm asking because I want everyone else to learn a bit about Miranda. Yeah,
no, it's all good. So I've already made the reference before that I currently play basketball. At the moment, I play in the Big B League, so that's sort of a statewide league. They would consider themselves to be the semi-professional level. So I think, after wheelchair footy, that's definitely my next favourite sport. But I think growing up, I gave everything a go. I started off playing tennis, and I was the most uncoordinated kid until I started playing tennis. And once I learned how to hit a ball with a racket, pretty much everything came pretty naturally to me. So when I was at school, I went to a small girls' school, played netball, hockey, tennis, diving, handball, soccer, cricket, everything under the sun.
Yeah, wow. So now, again, I'm not sure if you have an answer to this one or not, because I actually don't know the answer to this one. So, and again, there's a weird obsession with, especially our sport, and the impact and the collision and the crashing and stuff. So the question we've been asked quite often is, what's the worst injury we've received? So it doesn't have to be footy, it could be basketball, but we like a war wound story. Go figure.
Sure. Oh, look, I think the worst injury I've ever had was a broken rib, which I actually did a netball game in the morning, and didn't realise until I was playing basketball at night that every time I was exhaling really deeply, that my rib was sore.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
Netball
I
can be
think-
vicious.
Yeah, so that saw me off the court for about 6 weeks. I think there's nothing you can do for a rib 1-2 fracture, which
No.
it was.
Yep.
I do have ongoing issues with my knees. So when I play basketball, I strap both my knees. I have really poor alignment in my knee joints. My patella actually likes to swing out to the side and rub against the bone. So I strap both
Good.
my knees and brace both my ankles whenever I play sports. So I think I'm playing wheelchair footy now, but down the track, it's wheelchair sports might be the only way that I can really play sport without being the creaky man on the court.
Yeah. Did you know, it's funny, the other day I was running around after my little one and I actually thought I tore a calf and I grabbed and I was like, oh, I think I've torn my calf, and then realised it's fine. Sitting in the chair, I don't really use my calf that much, so I'll be fine. So, so that is one of the benefits of sitting in a chair. Righto. My last 2 questions are personal questions. What's your specialty dish? If I was coming around for dinner tonight, what are you cooking me? What's your go-to?
I think it's probably some teriyaki chicken or salmon with a soba noodle, shredded snow pea. I call it salad. I don't like salad, so that's as good as a salad gets. But teriyaki salmon on noodles would be good.
Wow, that sounds delicious. I like that.
It's actually
so last week
quick and easy as well.
Last week we had Adam on, Pidge, and he considered himself quite the culinary master. So,
he's
so he also brought a...
So.
What's that?
I was going to say, Pidge was a chef in another life, I thought, so he may not...
Yeah, I actually thought that as well. I think he was going down that path of being a chef on stage. So my last question to you, Miranda, you've done extraordinarily well. What's your favourite movie?
This... I always throw this out and I always think it's a little bit embarrassing. But it's Speed with Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock. You know that scene where
the bus one?
Madman, where the bus is going to blow up and they end up on their airstrip doing laps and pulling all these people off. Anyway, I feel like it's kind of that action with the ridiculous bus jump scene off a freeway that absolutely didn't happen. But it's just a bit of fun, so I always find myself coming back.
I love that answer. That is a great movie back in the day. Wasn't there even a Speed 2?
I think Speed 2 and 3 was a massive flop, so I would recommend that.
I remember Speed.
The sequels, but the original was a bit of fun.
Yeah, right. Hey, listen, I really appreciate your time today, so thanks for joining us. And I know we're just about out of time, so thanks very much. And again, to all the listeners, stay tuned. We will update you as soon as we know when the games are back on. There may be a catch-up game Sunday week. Otherwise, our next game's slated. Who do we play? I don't even know. I don't know who it is.
We haven't.
I think it's me.
Essendon yet?
Essendon, maybe Essendon.
Yeah.
I reckon it was Essendon. But yeah, so anyway, I will let everyone know. But Miranda, thanks so much for your time. It's been a pleasure chatting to you this morning.
No worries, Hendo. Thanks for having me.
See ya.
Bye.